Yes, mom.
Hello, everyone. Good evening and welcome in the self-empowerment program of Indian Fertility Society, which is a sixth program, very different aspects we have been seeing. This is initiative by our president, Professor Pankaj Talwar, and our secretary, Dr. Shweta Mittal. This was a very unique program, is actually coordinated all over by Dr. Leena. And today's topic, the all over, she has been thought completely different, and you all will be enjoying this. We have Dr. Rajvi as a core member, and today's speaker is going to be Dr. Mankul Goyal. He is going to speak on self-discovery on through five layers and five levels of the human life. And this is something very interesting topic, which actually we thought, and very unique personality. Dr. Mankul Goyal, we got him as a speaker. So just to introduce him, we will officially introduce him later, but then he is a consultant dermatologist and he has a specialty of dermatoendocrinologist and integrative medicine specialist. So it will be very interesting. So with this, I would like, actually we were waiting for Dr. Pankaj, but he's held up. I think he may come and then in between he can give a blessings to us. But by then, I would like to request Dr. Shweta Mittal, our Secretary General of Indian Fertility Society. She is a fellowship, National Board, MD, OBGYN, DNB, and MNMS. So she was a treasurer of IFS and AOGD, and is convener of SIG Group Reproductive Endocrinology, IFS. She's a recipient of Economic Times Award for inspiring obstetrician and gynecologist and IVF. She has got Dronacharya Award, Icon of Gynecology, Foxy Thicon Traveling Fellowship. She is the first fellow, National Board of Reproductive Medicine, and credited for first pregnancy from frozen thaw Usai, North India. She's contributed over 1,000 presentations and publications. She's a teacher to fellows and postgraduates, very acclaimed teacher, you can say, peer reviewer in Journal of Assisted Reproduction and Genetics and uh, Journal of Obstetrics and Gynec of India. So with this, she's been a co-director and a unit head center of IVF and human reproduction, Sir Gangaram Hospital, New Delhi. With this,
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am. This was
thank
really a
you,
very extensive and elaborate
Shweta. Yeah, welcome.
introduction. And good evening, everyone. I can definitely tell that self-empowerment program is such a brainchild of Dr. Pankaj Talwar sir and Dr. Leena. And Dr. Leena has been really working very hard in executing this program so well, and under the leadership of Dr. Bharti Dhore Patil, who has such a spiritual bent of mind, which I have realized over a period of last 1 year. But what is very interesting is that most of the times, whenever there are webinars, when it comes to, say, let's say in our reproductive medicine, male infertility, female infertility, or PCOS, or endometriosis, we kind of have read something, we know something, and we add on little. But when it comes to self-empowerment program, I have to read the topic every time because it's something very new to me. It's something which self-invokes, spiritual, self-healing, which is positive, which is full of energy. So today's topic, I'm really looking forward to it because Dr. Mankul is going to present a different aspect beyond the five layers what we know in medicine, and I'm really looking forward to it, that what is the a different meaning or a lateral thinking or deeper meaning, I would say. So over to Dr. Leena now to introduce our speaker for today.
I think Dr. Leena is traveling.
Okay. So, ma'am, what about you can take
Yeah.
over?
Doctor, could you please display Dr. Mankul's CV? Dr. Mankul's, yeah. So, as I said, Dr. Mankul Goyal is a consultant dermatologist, dermatoendocrinologist, integrative medicine specialist. He has done his MBBS from AIMS New Delhi and MD Dermatology from Delhi, AIMS Delhi again. Dermatoendocrinology hospitation is from Germany and certification in integrative medicine, South Africa. Currently, he is practicing at Sitaram Bhartiya Institute of Science and Research, South Delhi, as a consultant dermatologist. He is the founder and a director of Sampurnam Holistic Clinic, House Khas, a clinic which brings together the best of Western and Eastern medicines in healing varied health conditions. Apart from this, Dr. Mankul has been a spiritual seeker and explorer, explored various schools of yoga, including Hatha Yoga, Art of Living, Kriya Yoga from the Yogoda Satsang Society, Raj Yoga from Brahma Kumaris, Heartfulness Meditation, Buddhism, Mindfulness, and he seeks to integrate learning through integral yoga, a path laid down by Sri Aurobindo, a spiritual master from early 20th century. He contributes to an initiative on spreading the message of spirituality through a YouTube channel called Yes Spirituality, something very interesting. So with this, we welcome Dr. Mankul for the talk. I think we welcome Rajvi also. Many people have been joined now. And Dr. Mankul, the stage is yours. Could you please take on?
Thank you, Dr. Bharti, for taking so much time to introduce and in such detail. And thank you, Dr. Shweta, for holding space for all of us. I start, I think, with words of gratitude to Dr. Leena, through whom we all have an opportunity to meet. And another word for gratitude to all of you present here. It takes some level of sincerity to be joining at 7:30. We are all doctors, finished our work, and it takes a certain level of sincerity to then invest our time and efforts into listening to something after work. So a thank you to all of you, a sincere, heartfelt gratitude for all your receptivity through the session. And I think I'll share the presentation. And as I'm also a fellow doctor, I see that many of the presentations were done by people coming from different schools, maybe not just doctors, but other fields as well. So being in the same boat, being a doctor, I'm glad to share that, just to give a bit of background, as was there in the introduction as well, that for me personally, the spiritual journey started when I was in my 11th, 12th grade, and I found myself, disillusioned by study, from topping exams to, suddenly not feeling like studying. And then meditation came to my solace, and that I duly credit to all the exams in which, I cracked. And so basically, that's something which empowers all of us, meditation. And subsequently, as we go through the medical school, a lot of this gets diluted for all of us, living in medical school, doing your MBBS, MD. We all understand it's a very different atmosphere. But 2015, when I joined private practice, I had more time to myself and explore myself and go through the journey of self discovery. And that led me to all these different schools of thought in yoga. And I take this opportunity to express some being a logical doctor, reasoning doctor, a scientific mind, yet a seeker of what is the truth of life, who we truly are, and why are we here, led me to varied experiences. And that is what the crux or some of the key essence of those messages, which I imbibed or I'm still imbibing and learning and putting into practice in my life as a personal life and also as a professional doctor, is what I wish to present here today. I hope it enriches the understanding and it evokes an aspiration in all of us to look deeper within oneself. I also am cognizant of the fact right now that we are standing at around 7:45, 7:50, and it must have been a hectic day for many of us. And it will be nice to start with a short 5-minute meditation and to just center all of ourselves. And then I think we can move on towards the session because that will help the receptivity, the openness of the mind and the heart to receiving all that will be shared in the session. Is there a way people can send thumbs up, Dr. Bharti? Or, we can just go ahead and start. I think I'll just. Um,
Rahul, can they just make a thumbs up?
Yeah. Yes, ma'am.
Rahul?
Yes, ma'am.
Sure. I think irrespective, I can't see everyone. So let me just start with it. And I hope those who are there, they can join me in the practice. And wherever you are, in whatever position you are, if you can sit up straight and close your eyes, and we'll go through this little process. And start by taking 3 deep breaths. Let us visualize something which is beautiful, be it a flower, something that is beautiful to our senses. Visualize that and place it at the center of our heart. Keep the visualization of a flower at the center of our heart and draw the attention towards the breath. In breath and the out breath. As if the breath is going into the flower in the heart and going out of the flower. Watching the breath, watching the flower. We draw the attention towards all the feelings and the emotions within the being. One can start by first feeling one's toes. And the feet. Going back to the breath, back to the visualization of the flower. Feeling the calf muscle, the thighs, the buttocks, lower back, mid back, upper back, belly and chest. All through, staying with the visualization of the flower and the breath. Feeling the hands, forearms, arms, neck, and the head. Back to the vision of the flower, putting close to the flower the image of somebody we really cherish, we really love. It can be a human, it can be a divine form which we love. And with that joy of embrace of that relationship, we send that joy all around us, in the house, in the whole city where we live, in whole India, Asia, and Mother Earth. Staying with the vision of the flower in the heart, with the breath, with the intimacy and joy of that relationship, expanding that joy to the whole solar system and Milky Way galaxy, and all the galaxies in this universe. Let the light spread to the ever expanding universe. Bring concentration back again to the vision of the flower, to the breath, and the ever expanding universe. And seeing every being in this universe as a little tiny spark or a shining star, a tiny shining star. Maybe I am not this body or this mind. I am the infinite joy of the Spirit. My Divine Father and me, we are the same. Stay with one's breath and the flower, and gently open your eyes whenever ready. So I think that would have helped many of us calm down and be relaxed. At least I'm feeling very relaxed and rejuvenated after I just finished my work at 7. So, so I start the presentation. I'm sharing an overview on what all we are going to um, see today or listen to. It's about 5 layers of human existence, then 5 frequencies of human existence, 5 schools of yoga, and then 5 challenges in yoga, and then what is integral yoga. So that's a broad overview. And let's start with the 5 layers of the being, how no matter which school of yoga we explore, and this is one way of looking at human system to which all schools of yoga buy in, which is the Panchkosha philosophy, that we are actually five-layered beings. And out of this, the most easy to understand is the Annamaya Kosha, which is depicted in the color orange, which represents to the Anna represents food, so it's the food body or the physical body, which is made out of matter, which is what we as doctors are most commonly dealing with. It's the physical body. And the second layer is Pranamaya Kosha or the energy body. And this energy body, or we all have heard of pranayama or prana. Prana refers to the dynamic energy. Matter by itself cannot move. It's only the dynamic pranic energy which makes it move. And one can relate to pranamaya kosha. For example, when we have those gushes of energy in our body, if we get angry, and that gush of energy which is felt in the head, or the gurgling sound in the belly when we are hungry. So that is all prana moving, so to say, in the language of yoga. Then the third layer is manomaya kosha, or the mind body. And mind body is built up of the conscious mind, the subconscious mind, unconscious mind. And if we look at it from a medical perspective, we say that the mind is housed in the brain. That's where the thoughts are originating. But in yogic philosophy, they give it a separate name as a separate layer. And the reason for it can be partly understood through quantum physics in a way. In quantum physics, we understand what Einstein said, that energy and matter are interconvertible. So if we are looking at ourselves through our senses as this physical body, which is like a hard mass, in the sense of energy, we can also, like, this interpretation that we are this hard mass is coming through our eyes and through our sense of touch. But if we interpret the same thing through a machine or another way, we can also be looked up as a ball of energy. And Einstein also emphasizes it that any matter can also be looked at as energy. They're interconvertible. So we are a hard mass matter, but we can also see ourselves as a ball of energy. And we also understand that energy carries information, whether it's internet, we all are able to converse because energy is carrying a lot of information. So in yoga, whether it is mind, which is full of information, thoughts, emotions, and belief systems, they are a subtler form of energy. Prana, which is the dynamic life force, which is a more dense form of energy, and the physical body is even a more dense form of energy, which is more fixed. And beyond these three layers is the fourth layer, which is the Vijnanamaya Kosha, the intellectual body or the supramental body. So the supramental body in yoga refers to something above the level of mind, supramental. And the way we can relate to the supramental is intuition. All of us, as doctors, have at a certain level experienced intuition. And, whether it's a patient, we all have intuition that, okay, this is the medicine which might work. Sometimes we may not have an exact logic for it, but we intuitively feel that this is the disease. Any experienced doctor, the patient walks in, the moment walks in, they know this is the condition. So this is the supramental, which communicates with the mind, and with the mind it communicates in especially those things which we are very skilled at. So supramental is an all-knowing consciousness or an all-knowing part of us which knows everything already, which was ever has happened and will ever happen. And it drops into the mind in forms of intuitions. And generally intuitions happen about those things which we are already skilled at. But intuition can also be experienced through subconscious mind. Let's say we sleep with a question in our mind and we wake up, then we have the answer to that question. Sometimes we Many great scientists have mentioned how the greatest discoveries that they had was while sleeping in a dream. So it's the supramental communicating to the subconscious. Or the supramental can also communicate with the pranamaya kosha, or the energy body, in forms of gut feeling. The gut feeling is also, there's a beautiful story around gut feeling, that in the Andaman Nicobar, when there was tsunami, at that time, it's I think a part of NCRT book, the story. It's a real story. It's not just a fictitious story. When the tsunami was about to come, at that time, the meteorological department was walking around in half pants. They were unaware that a tsunami is about to come, but the tribals, they were already right at the top of the mountain. They had already realized that a tsunami is about to come, and it was all thanks to the gut feeling. That in today's day and age, we are so much in our heads that we forget to sometimes experience what's going on, forget to pick up those subtle intuitions in the gut feeling. And the last layer is the Anandamaya Kusha, which is the bliss body. And this bliss body we can relate to by taking the example of whenever we do something which is without any personal gain attached to it. We're doing something for the greater good or to serve others. किसी भंडारे में सर्विस करते हैं, or when we as doctors see patients for free and poor people for free, sometimes it doesn't bring any external reward, and sometimes it's even hard and it brings suffering, but internally there is a certain sense of satisfaction, a subtle joy we all experience. And that subtle joy is something which comes from this Anandamaya Kosha, or the bliss body, which goes beyond the pleasure and pain in daily life. So these are the 5 layers of the being. And in fact, in yogic philosophy, any disharmony or disease in the system can be an expression of any of these layers. If the energy body is too stagnant, or the mind is affected, or we are not following the purpose of our life, we are not aligning to the sadharma of our life, any of these things can be reflected upon the Annamaya Kosha, or the physical body, and can be a source of disease. And in this, another thing that is very importantly emphasized is to understand that our physical presence on earth is in a way looked upon as less than 1%. So, one way to look at ourselves is that we are infinite beings, and less than 1% of us is this physical representation, which is which we refer to as ourselves. Usually, we are so identified with our physical self, but that is probably less than 1% of ourselves. It can be quite liberating for somebody who is feeling very sick, because they then are in a better position to embrace our infinite nature. And that is why sickness, sadness, depression is the first step towards exploring for many people that our physical is actually less than 1%. The first chapter in Srimad Bhagavad Gita is Vishada Yoga, or depression yoga, because that is what helps us look inwards, that what's going on? Is there something more to me than this physical body? And then we become aware of these 5 aspects to us. And when we understand this, and we also can understand that there is a certain level of individuality that we hold. I have my own physical Annamaya Kosha, Pranamaya Kosha, and the Manomaya Kosha. And everybody here and everybody in this world has their own these 3 layers. But at the level of Vijnanamaya Kosha and the Anandamaya Kosha, we are all starting to become one. We are all one at a certain level. So if we see based on this, we could actually live in three different views of life. The first view is where we are fully feeling like these three layers and we are completely unaware of our top two layers. In that case, what happens is that we tend to live in an entropic field. Entropic field is ya to mera hai ya tera hai. It's a transactional world. We are constantly living in transactions that either this belongs to me or to you. There's this 100 rupees. Either I will have this 100 or you will have this 100 or we'll have 50-50. So it's always about transaction because we are all separate. The next possibility, when one starts to open up to a higher possibility, even in the transactional field, is that of enlivening field, which is the dharma kshetram. That even though we are separate, but we can all coexist in a dharmic fashion or in a fashion where we contribute to each other's growth. So then we have a possibility of growing together with each other. And to follow one's dharma is to, in a given context of life, see in this situation how I can grow or the other person can grow. We both can grow and the context. For example, with a patient, we can have a very transactional relationship that this is the fee they're paying and this is what we can do for you. Or it can be an enlivening relationship full of compassion. We are fellow beings, and how through this consultation you can grow, I can grow, and the context of medical treatment can grow. So the human beings can exist in entropic field or enlivening field, but there is a third possibility, that is the coherence field or dhyana kshetram. In dhyana kshetram, we fully become aware of our oneness at a certain level. And in that oneness, there is a spontaneous, beautiful action which emerges out of us, which the science has described as the zone. Many sports people have described being in the zone where the best possible performance comes out of them without even thinking what's happening. So it's that meditative state of an absolute right and left brain resonance. So before we move to the 5 frequencies of the being, I would love to see if some of you can switch on your camera, because I was doing another talk on Saturday, and it's one thing to speak to a blank audience and to black pictures, and another thing to have some faces on. It really adds, the speaker can actually converse. And also feel free to stop me in between if you have any questions. I would love to answer and make it into an interactive session. I think it will flow more with that. So moving on to the 5 frequencies of the being. So we looked at the 5 layers. If we look at here the individual human existence, it can be fully unaware of these 5 layers, or can be very occasionally aware of these 5 layers, or can be very fully aware of these 5 layers. And based on that, the human being can actually live in 5 different frequencies. So the first of these frequency is aham. Aham is a sense of a strong ego that I am this body and I am okay. One of the typical example I give of aham is of a person who consumes alcohol almost every day. And I'm sure we've all had that experience in our practice. I don't know about gynecologists doing IVF, but in our practice we see, अगर कोई patient आके बोलता है बार बार कि डॉक्टर साहब बस आप ये ठीक कर दो, otherwise मैं बिल्कुल ठीक हूँ. And if he says that 4-5 times, मैं बिल्कुल ठीक हूँ, मैं बिल्कुल ठीक हूँ, I ask him, how much do you drink every day? He says, डॉक्टर मैं ज़्यादा नहीं पीता हूँ, बस 200 ml every day, but मैं बिल्कुल ठीक हूँ. So that is aham, where we see that I am fine and you have a problem. We are unwilling to acknowledge the problem within, and we look at everybody else's problems. And the other aham possibility is the aham of victim. Some people feel like, oh, I am a victim of this world. So they are not willing to acknowledge what's inside, but they're always looking outside. So that's aham. And a complete sense of body identification. The next frequency in which we can operate is swayam. Swayam is where one is now ready to look within and look at one's flaws, that see, there is anxiety in me, or there is these different emotions. Maybe I'm not doing the best things. I need to self reflect. I need to journal. I need to see a psychologist or listen to different topics, learn some yoga. And the person starts to go on a journey of self improvement. And from this journey of self improvement, where one learns to be in the present moment, enjoy what is there in the present moment rather than constantly being in future, jab ye mil jayega tab acha lagega, ya remembering the past. One learns to be in the present moment. One learns to love with calmness and depth. Calmness and depth. There's one loving very superficially, wherein we get very attached with our cravings, and the other is with calmness and depth, which brings in a self acceptance, an unconditional love, a universal expanding love, which is not so much with attachment, which is not so full of expectations कि मैंने ये किया तो मुझे ये मिलेगा, which is more interested in giving out to others rather than receiving. When there is forgiveness which starts to come into our being, when there is gratitude which starts to flow in every moment, when there is contentment, and when there is a purification of the intellect, an intellect which tends to get focused on looking at, okay, this is the way I look at life, this is how people are, this is how things are, our own point of views, our own knowledge, to an intellect which is willing to be open and receive other people's point of views, to see that within every right there is some wrong, and within every wrong there is some right. So as these different learnings start to flow, the person starts to move from swayam gradually towards dhvani. Dhvani being the third frequency, where now in the context of spirituality, one has moved from first being in MBBS to now becoming an intern. Now one can help oneself and start to help others, can start taking orders from higher beings or higher doctors and start helping others as well. So that is the stage of dhani, and that is when people start talking on internet, on YouTube, and start becoming gurus and spiritual speakers, and they start doing these things. But dhvani itself is a trap, because it still tends to amplify, and the person is still identified with the physical and mental being. It's only when they start moving towards samsara. Samsara is where now the person expands so much that service becomes greater than self. The Mother Teresa's, the Abdul Kalam's, Mahatma Gandhi's, who identified with a much greater whole than their own individual mold. So when that starts to happen, then person is not too bothered about speaking or giving speeches, then they are more interested in abhi kisko serve karna hai, abhi kisko compassion dena hai. So that is the frequency of samsara. And then the next frequency is that of pure Atman. So through these five frequencies, and it's important to acknowledge that all these five frequencies are possibilities for all of us. The same person who is in dhvani, if loses temper, can very quickly switch back to aham. And the person who is living in aham, seeing a person who is in pain and doing an act of compassion, can move forward. So these are five possibilities which are true to all of us, as every human being has these possibilities. It's just where we live on an average through the day? Are we living more in aham and swayam, or we are living more in dhvani and sansar? Is a question we can reflect upon. And to vibrate at higher and higher frequencies, it's very important to connect inside with our inner being, with our own Anandamaya Kosha, Vijnanamaya Kosha, and the highest possibilities of the lower three koshas, the three layers, and keep continuously learning and progressing in our life inwardly so that we keep growing on an average where we stay in these five frequencies. Now, having built up this context of the five layers and the five frequencies, it's a good moment to talk about the common five schools of yoga which are present in India. Because India has had the wealth of yogic knowledge, and even though we are seeing various different amalgamations right now, but these are the primary five schools which we commonly see. The first one is Jnana Yoga, where we are majorly making use of the faculty of intellect, which is available to human beings. And intellect is that discerning power which, as doctors, we're constantly using, discriminating between two things. This is good, this is bad, this is truth, this is false. So that is the power of intellect. And in Jnana Yoga, one starts to ask oneself this question, who am I? Who am I truly? And in process of answering this question, one explores deeply life in various different ways. One works on one's purification, purification of the mind, purification of the prana, and through this process starts to enter into deeper and deeper states of silence. And in that silence, discover who we truly are, the true meaning of the self. So it's a method of intellectual reflection, self reflection, through which we arrive at our true self. The next is Bhakti Yoga. Bhakti Yoga is where, one feels that, what is there in, intellectual reflection upon God. There's also saying that God is something which mind cannot know, but something through which mind can be known. So some people are always busy trying to understand कि ये God क्या चीज है. They would give different logics to ऐसा होता है, वैसा होता है, but they sometimes do not realize that it is something beyond the Manomaya Kosha. It is above the Manomaya Kosha. So it cannot be understood through the mind, but through the divine, the mind can be looked upon and mind can be understood. So then bhakti comes away where one opens up to developing a relationship with any form and personality of the divine, whether it's Krishna or Jesus Christ or Shiva, whoever we love, to develop a strong connect with that form of the divine. And as one feels close to that form, then there is a subtle joy and subtle bliss that the person experiences. And through that relationship or that form of yoga or union with that form, one starts to go through these, because that form or personality is a realized form of that Panchakosha, which carries all the learnings. And when we attune our prana and our mind to that form and personality, then the learnings start to flow for this individual mind, prana, and body. And as it starts to flow, this form starts to evolve. The third way, for many people, they cannot sit down to meditate, they cannot sit down and read books or intellectually reflect on these matters, and they don't have the capacity to sit in a mandir and do Hare Ram, Hare Krishna. So many people choose Karma Yoga as their path. And Karma Yoga is a yoga in action. And this yoga in action, again, is very important to understand for doctors, because the simple way Karma Yoga Sri Krishna defined it for us was um, it's it's a it's a form of action where we surrender the desire for fruit and we detach from the outcome. So when we let go of the desire for fruit, then a natural sense of equality and equanimity flows into us. Now let's look at it. What happens usually that our intellect feels हम जो बुद्धि का इस्तेमाल कर रहे हैं as a doctor we are constantly using our intellect in making decisions for the patients. We feel many a times that we are making neutral assessment. What we need to reflect on is how the prana, which is prone to desires, sometimes we crave for food, sometimes we crave for success, sometimes we crave for fame, sometimes we crave for money. These desires are constantly impacting the prana. The nature of prana is to go out and reach towards and possess something. And in the process of possessing it, it has, with some things, it will get satisfied, and some things it will be dissatisfied. Let's say we sit down and want to eat, the prana wants to possess that food. Some things will be tasty, which will evoke satisfaction. Some things will not be tasty, it will evoke dissatisfaction. And in process, for the next time, we are conditioned to be attracted to certain foods and be repelled or be averse to certain foods. Now, this at the level of prana has been happening to everyone, every plant, every animal, it has been happening. But in the human beings, we have been given a higher faculty which is called as intellect. But we do not realize that this prana is also influencing the intellect constantly. And it builds up a valuation in the intellect based on what in prana brings in satisfaction and what doesn't bring satisfaction. So whatever brings satisfaction in the prana gets valuated as more important, and whatever doesn't bring satisfaction brings in less importance or is valued less. So it builds in a very subtle level of valuation in the intellect, and it is constantly influencing our decision making at a certain level. And intellect, mind you, is a beautiful tool to justify whatever we choose to do. So whatever we have chosen, it is very good at कि अच्छा ये तो अब ओके एक एक्स्ट्रा बर्फी खा लेंगे तो कोई प्रॉब्लम थोड़ी ना होती, मुझे डायबिटीज थोड़ी ना है, लेट्स ईट इट, आज तो दिवाली है, आज तो ये है. So intellect is very good at justifying it also at the next level. But in karma yoga, when we surrender the desire for fruit, when we say that this fruit, that satisfaction, that dissatisfaction, whatever comes out of our actions belongs to you, the divine, it doesn't belong to me, I let it go. When we are not so attached to that, then the pranas wirings into the intellect and it causing inequality starts to disappear. So when one starts to learn to surrender the desire for fruit, and that desire for fruit is not about rejecting what is coming our way, but actually the best way to get over the desire for fruit is to enjoy whatever is there in the present moment. The more we enjoy whatever, whenever we seek delight in whatever is in front of us in the present moment, then we are not so attached to the fruit के ये सब करने के बाद शाम को क्या करने मिलने वाला है. And in process, what happens is we develop a certain level of equality and equanimity in the intellect and in our actions through which self-perfection can flow. And then the joy of action, then the next question is how are we motivated to act? अगर कुछ पाना नहीं है तो फिर काम करने का motivation क्या है? So there's a beautiful study in psychology on intrinsic motivation. There are some things which are extrinsically motivated. ये मिलेगा तो हम motivate होंगे. But there's intrinsic motivation that stems from anything that makes us feel more free and more capable. Just motivates us just like that. चाहे बाहर कुछ मिले ना मिले. So that intrinsic motivation is built in when we work for the sake of the divine, when we work for the sake of the joy of the action, just for that, not because you're going to get something out of it. And that, in a way, is Karma Yoga in practice. Then there is Raj Yoga. Raj Yoga is Dhyan, Dharana, Samadhi, where we start to focus on something. Then, as the focus goes on increasing, that object of focus starts to vibrate, and we start to feel more and more one with that object. And then Samadhi is a state of absolute silence, going beyond this universe into the transcendent divine. So yoga defines divine or God in three aspects. One is the aspect of Bhagwan sabke andar hai. There is divine within us. The more we are silent, we discover that essence or Anandamaya Kosha within us, that blissful divine. Then there is a pantheistic aspect of the divine, which is the universe. There's been a lot written about universe. I'm forgetting that line from Shah Rukh Khan के जिस भी चीज को शिद्दत से चाहो कायनात आपको मिलाने में जुड़ जाती है, something like that. But it's the universe, it's the universal aspect of the divine. And then there is the transcendent aspect of the divine, which goes beyond the universe, something from where the universe started. It's the supreme source creator. So Raja Yoga helps people connect to that supreme source. And lastly, so this is the process of Raja Yoga, which Patanjali talked about. Brahma Kumaris describe a beautiful way to practice Raja Yoga. And lastly, there is the Hatha Yoga, which is, I'm coming at the end to that because that is what we usually think yoga is. Yoga is referred to as asanas, which, physical postures, but that is just one aspect of yoga, which refers to doing certain physical postures, which are adopting certain geometrical poses which are part of sacred geometry, which align ourselves to the universe and bring us in harmony with the universe, and hence bring a certain level of peace and harmony within the body. Many of these poses also bring a certain level of balance in the right and left brain. The Anulom Vilom and the right and left crossings. If you see, a lot of the poses of yoga are crisscrossing the body. So they bring in a certain level of spinal alignment and a very good right and left brain association, which we all understand these days, neuroplasticity and how it's beautiful for the physical well-being. But primarily in the yoga, Hatha Yoga is seen as a preparation for true yoga, which is the communion with the divine. So this is a brief on the 5 schools of yoga, and each of these schools of yoga has their own benefits and challenges. And those we can look at through the 5 challenges on the path of yoga. The first challenge is that of silence and action, duality of silence and action. For a person pursuing yoga, there is no experience of the divine. In fact, this whole talk could be like a wonderful theory, but no tangible experience. And one could feel like, oh, what about I have work to do right now? Who is going to go about seeking this silence and meditation and whatnot? I have so much work to do, so many research papers to write. My family is waiting out there, so many things to do. I'm not so bothered about this silence. So some people are fully caught up in their surface life experience. And then there is on the other end another person who has done meditation and experienced the silence and the beauty and the bliss of the divine. And he feels, okay, the moment I will go back to life and there's again that same kitch, that same people talking, conflicts in life, how do I deal with it? So one of the challenges in yoga is to bridge this duality of action and silence on the other end. The second challenge on the path of yoga is the illusions of the nature. The nature builds in its illusions through tamas, rajas, and sattva. So tamas is an energy of laziness and inertia and ignorance. So even though we all enjoy talking about it, but कौन time निकालेगा इन सब के लिए? छोड़ो, कल से करेंगे, परसों से करेंगे. That happens. The second is the energy of rajas, that we are all caught up in so much ambition. There are so many entanglements we have with this life. We have so much work to do and so much to achievements in life. We want to expand and we want to grow constantly. That सब कुछ पता होते हुए भी हम लोग के पास टाइम नहीं है इसके लिए. पता है कि ये सब करना है, पर I don't have the time, or I don't have the will to do it, because we are so caught up in the rajas or the ambition of life. The third is the sattva. Sattva is being more peaceful, loving, yet organized, having the power of concentration, which many doctors have. They have the capacity to sharply concentrate on any subject and understand it fully. But this sattva also sometimes turns against us because that builds rigidity of belief systems. Okay, this is right, this is wrong. Can you prove this? Where is the research on this? How do you say this is correct? So there is this sattva and sattvic ego. It can be seen even in rishis or saints who start to believe, oh, शास्त्रों में ये लिखा है, ये सही है. But this is not there, so this is wrong. You're committing adharma. And this became a major source for downfall of our country, because people so caught up in the spiritual literature or the religious literature that they forgot the essence of the practice. They were so caught up in following those customs and what is written in the book, rather than truly understanding the meaning of yoga. So tamas, rajas, and sattva follow us in our daily life, and they also follow a sadhak. And then there are other masks of ego. One common mask is that, oh, see, I have done so much acts of service for so many people. So the ego takes the form of that person who is, like a serviceman who does so much service to people. And the ego can take the form of being a brilliant instrument of the divine. See, I'm doing so much good work in this world. I'm a beautiful instrument of the divine. But the truth is that we are all tiny little, we just did that in the meditation, we're little tiny beings in this universe, tiny transient phenomena. So one needs to see that the divine is equally present in every moment within all of us. So this is another challenge in yoga. Then another common challenge in yoga is seeking individual liberation. कि अच्छा समझ में आ गया डिवाइन है, चलो मैं अपनी साधना में जुट जाता हूँ, and I will do yoga and find many people are seeking enlightenment, कुंडलिनी योगा, कि मेरी enlightenment हो जाए, मैं लिबरेट हो जाऊं, मेरे को मुक्ति मिल जाए जीवन मरण के साइकिल से. But that becomes again a very individualistic process, and it in a way rejects our sense of oneness. If we are divine and divine is seated within all of us, then how we can be so obsessed with our own freedom from birth and death cycle? It has to be for everyone. So yoga, if it has to be complete and it takes us beyond the masks of ego, has to be to uplift not just humanity, but every being, every animate or inanimate object. And lastly, when we sign up for yoga, then we sign up for further trouble. We sign up for, more challenges in life, more rises and more falls, because it is through those obstacles is what we learn in our lives. So one has to be ready for all those rise and falls, with the gift or the reward being that taste of bliss or anandamaya kosha, and that sense of harmony within. And that brings us to integral yoga, which has answered many of these seekings, having explored various different schools of yoga and imbibed a lot of practices. I personally found peace in integral yoga, which brings together the active and passive aspect of the divine. So it is a yoga where it is not just about sitting in silence, and it is not just about being caught up in the surface action. It is seeing the divine, the Shiva and Shakti together in oneness. It is not just about seeking individual liberation, it is about uplifting the whole humanity. It is not just about silence, it's about seeking perfection and wellness in all the 5 layers. How can one master the physical? How can one master the prana? How can one be mastering the mind? So, seeking wellness in all 5 layers. And then, lastly, the process completes itself only when we are able to see the divine in all and see the infinite potential within every being in this universe. Thank you so much. I'm happy to answer any questions. I would love to hear some questions.
I think Dr. Rajvi, I would invite Dr. Rajvi to get the question, answers, comments.
I don't
Dr.
know if
Rajvi.
anybody in the, yeah. Yeah, I think there's an echo.
Yes, yes. No, it's okay.
It's okay, madam. We can hear you clearly.
Yeah. Yeah. So I don't think there can be any questions in this kind of a talk because it's a lot of depth and insight that you've given. And I think
there are comments.
Dr. Mankul.
Saying enlightening talk.
1 minute. I think there's too much echo, or am I hearing it?
No, you're okay. Dr. Rajvi is one of the first.
Yeah, okay. Okay, I think that's better. So, Dr. Mankul, firstly, I would like to really compliment you for covering such a vast concepts and topic in such a short time and with so much of clarity, talking of the Panchakoshas, Annamaya to Anandmaya, and trying to explain them in simple terms. So, right from a skeletal-muscular body to the what we call the divinity existing within us, and how to connect from the Annamaya to the Anandmaya and back. So I think I compliment you then bringing the whole concept of the three gunas and how each of these gunas, so, we get most of the time either we are tamasic or rajasic, and getting into a state of neutrality, which is basically getting into a state of present. So I think you've covered it all very well, talking about Patanjali's Ashtanga Yoga without really mentioning it in depth. But yes, you talk about tapasadhya, Ishvara Pranidhana, intense practices, the swadhyaya or the using jnana yoga, or we're talking, and then all this is a sense of surrender, Ishvara Pranidhana, without a sense of ego, the I-ness. So thank you very much, because I think in today's times, we are so much caught up in ourselves, and the I gets bigger and bigger and bigger. The capital I becomes bolder and bolder, and that's where most of the issues turn up, because the I gets hurt very easily. So the introducing people to the practices. And finally, it does boil down to that as much today we feel people realize that the problems are more skeletal-muscular and physiological. It's only in the last decade or so we are talking of emotional problems, which were earlier considered. The problems of intelligence and awareness are still not understood, and problems of conscience and the consciousness are still far away. So all the source being in the I. So I think you've wonderfully covered it. And I guess we all need to start practices. Whatever we do in whatever form, whatever appeals, like you rightly said, everybody has their. So finally, we are going towards part of our tradition and culture for centuries. So thank you so much, Dr. Goyal, and talking in a language which can be understood by all of us. So thank you. And maybe Dr. Bharti, you want to have the last word? So just trying to summarize. Yeah.
One question from my side, Mankul, Dr. Mankul. You said you actually kind of entered into spirituality or thought of spirituality or came across at the age when you were, I think, very young, quite young. Uh, could you please tell me what made you to make you understand that time or turn like that? Because see what happens, somehow, say maybe say bhakti yoga or maybe spirituality, we all take as a sentimental something. We start thinking that कि वो इसको भी कुछ नहीं मिला तो फिर वो spirituality में गई है और ये kind of that. They don't understand कि the person who is going into spirituality slowly starts getting answers. Slowly. I'm not saying we know fully anybody knows, but then at least you know yourself. Like you start understanding where to stop, what is the thing going on. But then how in such a young age you went into that phase?
Thank you, madam, for that question. And thank you, Dr. Rajvi, for beautifully summarizing. So, madam, I think for all of us, as Srimad Bhagavad Gita describes, that, it is only when the system starts to collapse. For Arjuna, when the system really started to collapse, is when he turned to Krishna. When the Gandhi of defense, ego defense mechanism starts to collapse, then only you're ready to go down and bow, say, अब मुझे नहीं समझ में आ रहा, अब आप बताओ क्या करना है. Otherwise, we are ready with our bow and arrow. We have created so many skills. We have so many अस्त्र शस्त्र in our system. हमने इतनी डिग्रियां इकट्ठी कर ली, इतना पैसा इकट्ठा कर लिया है कि वो बहुत सारे डिफेंसेस रेडी हैं सबके पास. So for me, at a young age, they started to collapse. I was a topper, and I was thought of कि भाई अच्छा ये तो लड़का का बहुत अच्छा होने वाला है. And then suddenly I just didn't feel like studying. So I lost complete interest in my studies, and I think it's a common phenomena also at the teenage level, 17, 18, when you are. For many people, it happens. But thankfully, rather than resorting to things which would take the teenager in a downward spiral, I got exposed to meditation. I got exposed to something called as binaural beats meditation, which is a sound-based therapy through which it brings a certain right and left brain resonance. So at that stage, I was not so much interested in God or anything, but I was looking for something which can help me regain my interest back in studies. But because I started doing that, I started experiencing having certain experiences of zone and other things, and then it just naturally opens you up to this whole realm. So as a 17-year-old, I understood those phenomena in a different way based on how I looked at it. But now it's a very different understanding, and it will always continue to unfold. So, but pretty much to answer your question, it is when your defense mechanisms fail and they collapse. And if you're willing to go into from aham to swayam, when you're willing to say and bow, rather than take other means, people will start getting into drugs, alcohol, or something, and they drown themselves in aham even more until they realize that it feels even more difficult to go into swayam and say, "Hey, I don't know, please teach me." So that is probably what happened to me.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Wonderfully. Unless you surrender, nothing comes. Bhagavad Gita also, it is actually a topmost secretive knowledge which has been actually Bhagwan Sri Krishna has given to Arjuna. Is we all actually we represent Arjuna is. So, but unless surrender, nothing comes, and you will not understand also things. Yeah, and you are very
I
rightly.
guess that's the, yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, and it's rightly said at that age, you go into different directions altogether, and you go that your this things. I like that aham to swayam, because then you don't understand actually, and you've been aham. You're going more and more into that aham chakra. You're a vicious cycle altogether. That's very right. Absolutely. That's why right time, young age should know the spirituality. I think they must because they are all confused right now. They don't know where exactly they have been heading. They don't realize that is this scientific advancement is the real life, or because they are torn apart now. I could see that the patients will come in the teenage and little more, they're torn apart. They just don't know whether to follow the people who is being like traditionally people are looking and telling them, or should they follow the scientific advancement and the temptations. Like they think that that is the progress which has been scientific advancement and new things. And so this right time, if this gets corrected to them, a correct perspective of themselves, things would be very, very, very different. And if you get into the medical college with that kind of a spirit, means I would have been a very different person altogether if I would have been exposed at that time. This is what I feel. I'm now in the practice, this age of my practice, when I entered into my practice and everything had changed. My patient's oneness has completely changed. That is what I said. It has to come in everybody now. That is very important. So it was very nice, Dr. Mankul. I really liked that. And I think hope everybody's chat box is full with very good, very good. So that means everybody has been really appreciating. Thank you so much. Although we don't want to
Thank you,
stop.
Dr. Bharti. Sorry to interrupt you, but I'll just add that if somebody needs more information, we have built in a YouTube channel called Yes Spirituality. And Yes Spirituality is run by Dr. Ramesh Bijlani, who could be one of the prospective speakers on this channel. He's basically was the head of the Department of Physiology in AIMS, and he was about to be the director of AIMS, but he chose to take VRS and move to an ashram setting and spread the word of spirituality to people. And he's put together his 25 years of exploration on this channel called Yes Spirituality, where all the gyan without any personal gain attached is available for free for people, and various different contexts are covered, whether it is yoga, spirituality, or even education is covered on that channel. So if anybody is interested, please feel free to visit that channel.
Yeah, spirituality. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So because the time doesn't
thank
allow
you.
us now, so we have to stop here. Thank you so much. Thank you, IFS, Dr. Pankaj Talwar, Dr. I think she's there, Leena. Thank you so much, everybody, Dr. Rajvi and Dr. Shweta Mittal, for attending all in very good number. And thank you, Dr. Mankul.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.